Let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism is not when you want to create quality content, when you take pride on your work, when you want to see things through in the best way possible. That's just having high standards or you wanting to create something worthy of creation. Perfectionism is specifically when people have this compulsion of doing things perfectly, as they define them as perfectly. Obviously, this is subjective for everyone. And for different people, perfect is going to mean different things. But in their minds, things have to be perfect, and there is a compulsion, and there is an aversion of being practical and just leaving things good enough in the case of expediency. What causes that? Are we born perfectionists? I don't think so. What happens normally is that we learn that as a strategy for survival when we're younger. This could come from very different things, but normally it's something like this. People were pressured too hard to perform when they were children. This is very common in many cultures, especially Asian cultures, but many other cultures also in the West. And some parents pressure their kids too much to perform. And so what happens is that the kid is only celebrated and accepted when they're performing well, either in school, sports, wherever the area is, and they're normally punished or the parents are disappointed when he doesn't. That sends a message that your sense of acceptance and approval depends on what you're achieving, and it creates a conditional sense of self-worth. I have talked about these things before. I have made 2 videos about it. If you want to watch those videos, links are in the description. What happens is that the child learns that he's only accepted and approved when he's doing things great. So what he does is he learns this strategy of perfectionism. He wants to do things perfectly to prove that he is worthy, to get the attention from others, to get the approval, the acceptance. It's another type of conditional sense of self-worth. It's just a symptom of perfectionism. When a person is being a perfectionist, they don't do it because they're difficult people. They're doing it because there is a reason underneath that they're not conscious about. It's a non-conscious strategy. And the reason is probably feeling safe. Maybe they were punished physically when they were kids, when they didn't perform well, or they were yelled at and they felt really afraid, or they were criticized. And no one likes to be criticized, and much less when we're kids. So they learn a strategy for protection that was to do things perfectly. But there are also different reasons, different causes of these. Maybe those parents never gave them enough support, enough attention. They were neglected. And the only moment when they were given attention was when they performed something, when they did something great. Finally, the parent took a moment and gave them some attention to congratulate them. So that neglect or lack of support, lack of attention when they were children created this strategy. And they said, okay, finally, when I do something great, they do give me attention. So I'm going to do things perfectly. Because that creates this symptom of perfectionism. So remember, if you're a perfectionist and wanting to do things perfect, it's not about the task in itself. It's about you wanting to feel either safe or approved of, or finally being given attention, or any underlying strategy that is going on underneath. Is a symptom really of some cause that was created when you were younger, maybe a teenager, maybe a child. And it's not something that you were born with. And it relates to those metaprograms of reference attention, of other reference, and also of conditional sense of self-worth. When you feel very worthy, when you're achieving things, when you're doing things perfectly, and the judges of those things are other people. So you become a perfectionist. And that's a difficulty. We want to be able to be more flexible in some cases. We want to be practical in some cases. A lot of people have difficulties at work or while creating, content creators or creating art or writing books. If you're a perfectionist, that can bring lots of other symptoms with it. For example, the person that is a perfectionist can also become a procrastinator. Why? Because everything has to be perfect. And when everything has to be perfect, it's overwhelming. Even a little task has to be perfect. because normally the results of your actions, of your projects, you derive your sense of identity from them. They define your sense of identity. So everything has to be perfect. So everything is overwhelming. People tend to procrastinate when they're perfectionists. Also, they lose flexibility. A lot of tasks at workforce, they need flexibility, they need expediency. You have to be flexible and do things and be practical. You cannot be a perfectionist on all the cases. That can become a big deal, a big problem. Obviously, you may want to be a perfectionist in some cases, in some specific cases, with some projects, especially if they involve some sort of safety. If you're designing airplanes, you better be a perfectionist, because we don't want any flaws on those airplanes. The consequences could be very grave, right? But this is something that you should be able to choose when you want to put lots of effort into a task and lots of attention, and not that you're compelled to do so. And remember, it's never about the task. When you're a perfectionist, it's normally always about an underlying strategy, a non-conscious strategy of feeling safe or approved of or accepted or being given that attention that you never had. So if you're a person that struggles with this and you want to overcome this, go ahead and visit my website. Send me a message. Links are in the description. Me or one of my coaches will be willing and happy to help you with this.